At its height, China's last empire ruled over one of the richest and most powerful civilizations on Earth. Its emperors commanded vast lands, great wealth, and absolute authority. And yet, within just a few generations, that power would almost completely vanish, leaving behind a child on the throne and a dynasty at its end. At its peak, China's last empire stood strong and confident. Under the rule of the Kangxi Emperor, the Qing Dynasty reached a level of stability and power that few nations could match. The empire expanded its borders, strengthened its government, and brought long periods of peace to its people. Trade flourished, cities grew, and the imperial court governed with authority and control. To many, China was not just another country, it was the center of the world. Its rulers saw little need to change. The system worked, the empire was secure, and for a time, they were right. The strength of the empire was real, but it was no longer enough. The Qing system brought stability but made change difficult. Officials followed tradition, innovation was slow, and new ideas resisted. For generations, China had seen itself as the center of civilization, advanced, self-sufficient, and secure. There seemed no reason to look outward. But beyond its borders, the world was moving in a different direction. New technologies were emerging. Global trade was expanding. And powerful nations were beginning to push outward. Inside China, pressure was building as well. The population grew rapidly, placing strain on resources. Corruption spread through parts of the government, weakening its ability to respond. These were not sudden problems. They developed slowly, almost unnoticed at first, but they began to erode the strength of the empire from within. By the early 1800s, the world beyond China was changing rapidly. Industrial nations in Europe were developing stronger weapons, new technologies, and faster ways to move goods across the globe. Trade expanded, and foreign powers began to look outward, seeking new markets and influence. China, however, remained largely closed to outside ideas. When foreign merchants pushed for greater access, tensions began to rise. These tensions would eventually lead to the Opium Wars. At the center of the conflict was opium. Foreign traders brought large amounts of opium into China. Addiction spread, harming families and weakening the economy. When the Qing government tried to stop it, war followed. China was not prepared. Its military forces were no match for modern weapons and naval power. The result was a series of defeats that forced China to open its ports, accept unequal treaties, and allow foreign powers a growing presence within its borders. For many Chinese, this marked the beginning of what would later be called the Century of Humiliation, a time when the empire could no longer control its own fate. What had once been a position of strength was now becoming a position of vulnerability. Now the Qing rulers faced a difficult question. Could the empire adapt, or would it fall further behind? Faced with growing pressure, the Qing leadership knew change was needed. Some officials pushed for reform, modernizing the military, improving industry, and learning from foreign technology. There were real efforts to strengthen the empire. At the center of this effort was the young Kangxi Emperor, who supported more ambitious and rapid reforms, but not everyone agreed. Many within the court feared that sudden, radical change could bring chaos and weaken imperial authority. Among them was the powerful Empress Dowager Cixi. Although Cixi supported certain reforms, she resisted changes that moved too quickly or threatened the traditional system. The result was a divided leadership. Some reforms moved forward, others were blocked or cut short. In the end, the emperor's efforts were halted and change slowed once again. At a time when the world was moving quickly, the Qing government struggled to keep up. And as the pressure increased, the empire began to lose control. By the early 1900s, the Qing Empire was under strain. Foreign powers expanded their influence, demanding concessions. Inside China, unrest spread as many people lost confidence in the government's ability to lead. Rebellions broke out, and the authority of the imperial court weakened. Reforms came too late. New policies were introduced, like modern schools, and military changes. But they could not keep pace with the crisis. Across the country, frustration was rising. In 1911, a revolution began, and this time it could not be contained. What began as a local uprising quickly spread. The empire that once ruled absolutely was losing control of its own territory. Within months, the Qing dynasty collapsed. At the center of it all was a child. Puyi was just a young boy when he was placed on the throne of China, the final ruler of a dynasty that had once seemed unshakable. Surrounded by ceremony and tradition, he lived within the forbidden city, cut off from the world outside. But the empire he was meant to rule no longer existed. In 1912, the Qing dynasty formally came to an end. Imperial power was gone. Puyi's life would take many unexpected turns, but his place in history was already set. He would be remembered as the last emperor, a child placed on a throne at the very moment it was disappearing. The fall of the Qing dynasty marked more than the end of a ruler. It marked the end of imperial China itself. For over 2,000 years, China had been ruled by emperors, dynasties rising and falling, but the system itself enduring. Now that long tradition had come to an end. The world that had once sustained imperial China had changed, and the empire could not change quickly enough. What began as a story of strength and stability ended in uncertainty and transition. From the power of emperors like the Kangxi Emperor to the quiet figure of Puyi, a child at the end of it all. And with him, the age of emperors came quietly to an end. From unquestioned power to no power at all. China would move forward into a new and uncertain future, leaving behind a system that had lasted for thousands of years. So what do you think was the real reason the Qing dynasty fell? Was it internal weakness or outside pressure? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy this kind of history, please subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos.